One of the biggest myths that heat pumps do not work in cold climates.
There's no solution for this. You hired the cheapest guy. He did the cheapest possible job. You got to rip it all out.
What are some of the primary considerations if someone's watching this right now and they're just trying to decide between a furnace and a heat pump or just keeping what they have currently?
I love the side discharge heat pumps better than the American style trash can heat pumps. The Daikin fit system, which I know you're very familiar with, I think they got an awesome algorithm for figuring out how to really run humidity at low levels. You look at submittal sheets, you look at those, the COPs and the efficiencies and things of that sort, and that's what people try to focus on. A lot of technicians, a lot of companies don't even do it, don't even know it.
Steam versus bypass. What's up, and welcome to the HVAC Dope Show. Today we have a guest. He's a mechanical contractor in the state of New Jersey. He's going to be talking today a lot about heat pumps, heat pump technology, some of the new high efficiency equipment out there. And he's going to be dispelling a lot of the myths and also giving his take. So please help me welcome to the show, Chris with it's Integrated Comfort Systems, correct?
Integrated Comfort Systems. Chris Wisniewski. I'm the Vice President of Integrated Comfort Systems. I've been doing this technically full-time since 2000, but honestly, my first installed system was when I was 11 years old, helping my father out. So it's a little longer than that.
Right on. And so you've been you've been running the company for how long now?
Technically since 2000. So yeah, 24 years.
Nice. Okay. So you've seen a few things, it sounds like, and you've seen things develop. What are some of the changes that you've seen kind of over the years, and especially in recent years? Like what's changed in terms of like heat pump technology, and what have you guys been running into?
Well, definitely improvements. I mean, efficiency, right? I mean, everywhere the efficiency improvements have been made year to year, the mandates for higher efficiency equipment, but really the controls, the smarter equipment, that's been a huge change. Specifically, when you talk about heat pumps, it's honestly the performance. When you talk about 20 years ago, I bet you ask 100 contractors if you can use a heat pump when it's 15 degrees outside, all of them will say no, right? It's quite the opposite today.
Yeah. And when did that shift change? Like, when did the high efficiency heat pump technology really come into play? Because we deal with that a lot here in Colorado, obviously, where people say things like, heat pumps don't work in cold weather. And so just to kind of back up a little bit, can you give, just for context, can you maybe describe the climate in New Jersey? Because there'll be a lot of people that can benefit from this video kind of all over the nation, not just in that, but if you give them kind of the climate, the weather, things like that, they'll understand kind of what you guys run into and some of the issues you're dealing with. Yeah.
I mean, we experience all 4 seasons here in New Jersey. I mean, we definitely experience hot, humid summers. Our design temperature, is around 92 degrees for a good portion of the summer, and definitely experience high humidity at portions of the summer as well. And we see temperatures in the area I serve, 10 degrees, some areas is design temperature. I mean, obviously it hits negative degrees and all that in certain points of the year, but quite often getting into the teens and the single digits is very common as far as the winter temperature. Decent amount of snow too, not as much as Colorado, but a decent amount of snow.
Sure. And you're dealing with humidity year round, or mostly in the summer, or shoulder seasons too?
Mostly in the summer. Yeah. As far as HVAC systems and handling humidity, or removing humidity, I should say, is in the summer. Adding humidity would be in the winter.
Okay. So you kind of do both. You deal with humidifiers in the winter as well.
Correct.
Right on. What's your opinion? Just curious. Because you are familiar with humidification systems, steam versus bypass, or like powered humidifiers. What are your thoughts?
So we don't install bypass. We don't. Bypass could create a lot of problems. I call them mold factories. There's a damper there. The homeowner has to close and open. The homeowners never remember to do it right. Fan-powered humidifiers are nice and affordable. They do pretty well in a lot of homes, but not every home. I mean, depending on the size of the home, depending on how old and how much infiltration the home has. Steam humidifiers pretty much 100% of the time will do the job. So I always tell customers, if you're getting a steam humidifier, I'm almost guaranteeing that it will make your relative humidity levels in the house pretty much in all conditions. Sometimes you got to be careful because you get condensation on the windows and other cold surfaces.
Sure.
And powered humidifiers, depending on the setup, again, they could do very well for the majority of the winter, but perhaps some cold spells that are really dry, they're evaporative humidifiers. They depend on the system they're connected to. So if you're not getting that hotter air moving through them, they're not going to be as good. So there's limitations to it. But they're vastly different budgets. So there's choices for people.
For sure. And then as far as like systems you install, because you do install a lot of the inverter driven heat pumps, correct? And VRF. And one of the things, like, one of the things I love about having the channel is we get a lot of comments from people kind of all over the country, and people have questions related to like humidity removal and how inverters work. What's your experience with like how, because you install Mitsubishi, and what other products do you install?
Mitsubishi and Daikin, as far as inverters go. I mean, we do a couple other things. We're Luxair HMH series units are pretty popular too. They're priced extremely well. Bosch as well. But yeah, Mitsubishi and Daikin are the primary ones. So you're asking what is the thought on humidity removal?
Correct. Because in the summer, you're dealing with humidity removal. And what's like the ambient humidity outside, like, for example?
Oh, it could be high 70s on on an
Okay.
80-degree day. I mean, it gets sticky at some points in time. Now, it's not pervasive throughout the entire summer, but there's periods of heavy humidity here and there where, people get pretty uncomfortable. It depends on the setup. It depends on the house. I don't always attribute the humidity removal 100% to the equipment. If, we came in a new construction house, we built everything from scratch, type ductwork. Yeah, then we can just narrow it down to humidity removal just purely on the equipment. A lot of times, when you retrofit, your ductwork isn't as good. It's like, yeah, you can have the best equipment in the world, but still things fail as the outcome because the entire system, the distribution isn't that fantastic. So it's hit or miss on some houses. The Daikin Fit system, which I know you're very familiar with, I think they got an awesome algorithm for figuring out how to really run humidity at low levels. I think everywhere we have a Daikin Fit system, when we observe them remotely, it's like they hit around 50% humidity, which is about where you want to be in the summertime. They're around 50%, and I hardly ever see any that don't make it there. The ones that don't make it there is usually because user error. People kind of use them wrong. They don't turn them on. They're not really using the air conditioning. But yeah, those are very successful with humidity removal. And there's some Mitsubishi units too. There's, if you know which ones, which dip switches to activate for lower evap temperatures, you can get good dehumidification as well. And it could be done wrong, where you install high efficiency equipment and it totally sucks.
Yeah. What are some, if someone's like in the market for an inverter and they're wanting to get an inverter driven heat pump, let's say they're on a forced air furnace right now, and especially in your type of climate, what are you typically recommending? Are you recommending dual fuel systems? Like, what questions are you asking? What are some of the considerations that you tell people to look at?
Yeah, it's every scenario is different. Every scenario has its own, nuances to it. The question I asked is, what do you want? Why are you getting a heat pump? Because there's different categories of people. I have customers that are getting a heat pump for environmental reasons, and they don't want anything that's carbon burning in their house, right? So they're definitely dedicated to fully electrifying or getting a heat pump only, and they're going to explore ways of doing that, even though that solution might cost them more, retrofits and things like that. But that's their prerogative. So in the end, it really is about the customer. Otherwise, if people want to benefit, in most average homes, if want to benefit from utility savings, usually hybrid is the sweet spot, right? I mean, you get the 30 degrees and above, the heat pump is a winner all day long. And then when it drops colder, there's the furnace there that economically, at least, even though the heat pump's capable of heating, economically, there's an economic balance point where the furnace probably costs you less to run, at least a high efficiency furnace. And then, of course, there's houses where it's, people love the idea of a heat pump, but it's a giant house, bad ductwork, poorly insulated house. And, the furnace has to do the heavy lifting and the heat pump does a little bit of the light work. What I tell everybody is that if you want a heat pump, any house could be 100% heat pump. How much money do you have?
Yeah.
Is the question.
Totally. And probably how much duct work. I mean, are you doing duct jobs in attics when people are like adding second systems and things like that to fully electrify, or what's kind of your sweet spot that you really do?
That is a great question. So the sweet spot it ends up usually being a mixed system. This is where Mitsubishi is wonderful. This is where you can have call it a single heat pump system, sized correctly, of course, and a portion of it is dedicated to a ducted air handler that serves the majority of the house. And most old houses built here, the ductwork's never that great. It's usually a retrofit, so there's always something lacking. And then that same system can also have a ductless system connected to it, or several ductless systems for the various spaces. So you're really attacking the weak points of the house where people previously never had good heating or cooling in those spots with the ductless systems. And the combination of the entire system gets them enough capacity for heating. They don't necessarily have to even use it all for cooling. So I have a bunch of designs where ductless systems are there to give the extra oomph for the heating needed, but they'll never be used for cooling because the main ducted system kind of takes care of cooling. So that's how you get around by not oversizing a lot of times. So there's so many different ways to do it, but there's always a way to do it. Again, what's the budget? What's the criteria the homeowner wants?
Sure. And then are you pairing this with like insulation projects as well, or do you do any augmented features like AeroSeal products or things like that?
We personally don't. When accessible, especially in an attic, right? Pretty much most ductwork in an attic is accessible. And if it's a poor shape, ductwork, then we definitely try to educate the customer about how much value replacing that ductwork, properly sealing it, properly insulating it has. But I've never come across a residential project where AeroSeal seems to be the solution. I know companies do it. We personally don't. I've been involved in projects where AeroSeal is used in commercial level and all that. It's got its successes and sometimes maybe not. Insulation wise, yes, we personally don't do it, but we're partnered with somebody who does all the insulation, and we share projects back and forth. And when somebody wants to fully electrify and a single system is just not enough heating capacity because their house, the load calculation for their house is way too many BTUs.
Sure.
But it's mostly because their insulation is poor. I will definitely drive them to get their insulation project done. And then let's see what your house looks like after the insulation and the ceiling project, because now you're going to be perfect for a heat pump.
Right on. And as far as like the age of the homes you're working on out there, do you see a lot of like older homes? Is that why the insulation is just so terrible?
Yeah, I'm in the northern New Jersey market here. I mean, a lot of 1900s, 1920s, 1950s homes. They've been renovated over some time. So the home was never designed with ductwork in mind, right? I mean, brand new house, or even brand new construction houses, like ductwork is generally not done pretty well. You know that yourself, probably.
I do, yeah.
I'm surprised sometimes the ductwork from a 1950s house is executed a lot better than a 1990s house.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's retrofitted ductwork. So this is where I think a lot of education happens between us and the customer. Customers sometimes don't think about the ductwork being part of the formula, but I think it's, I break it down very simple to customers. I kind of tell them 50-50, 50% of it is the equipment. The other 50 is like the distribution system. In some instances, it's honestly a lot more. The distribution system has so much more value. I don't care what equipment I put in there. If the ductwork is just not done right, not sized right, not distributed right, leaking everywhere, you're not going to get results.
Sure.
And essentially, they're paired up together. So yeah, I mean, there's projects where ductwork is hidden and you can't do anything about it and you have to live with it. But then you come up with the alternate solutions, like ductless in spaces too.
Sure. And when you're putting in a ductless system, do you put in a lot of cassettes, or do you ever put in any of the slim duct units, or some of the or mostly wall mount? Like, what is is it just come down to budget for you guys, or there are design constraints you kind of run into?
Yes.
Okay.
All of it.
Yeah.
I mean, every one of it. So yeah, I mean, people love the one-way ceiling cassettes that fit in between the joists. They look beautiful. Yeah. They don't interrupt the space. They look like they belong.
Those are the Mitsubishi, sorry to interrupt. Those are the Mitsubishi, the 14-inch, like the narrower one-way cassettes, right? Yeah.
And other manufacturers now have them too. I mean, it's a great thing. Everybody wants them. Not everybody necessarily has the budget. Sometimes, like, the design forces you to use those units because you look around and go, you don't have wall space. It's all glass or whatever it is, right? So sometimes you're forced to use that. But yeah, a lot of our projects end up being a combination of a little bit of everything: wall, ceiling, floor unit, a little bit of a ducted system. That's the beauty. I mean, that's the beauty of again, why we deal with a product like Mitsubishi. There's a lot of flexibility to their design.
And then our Mitsubishi, that is for their is it a VRF product that they make?
Yeah, it's technically their M series has that branch box. They can do multiple, but sometimes we do. They have a product called a Smart Multi, which actually crosses. It's a single condenser, could be both a VRF and connected to a standard kind of mini split ported system. But sometimes VRF is actually installed because it performs a little bit differently and there's slightly different units. So each has its advantages.
Sure. And then is that your favorite unit that, like, if it was a perfect world and you had one unit you could install, that would be the one?
If you ask me what I got in my house, it's Mitsubishi.
Okay.
I always tell people it's the X factor. I mean, listen, a lot of units are very comparable. You look at them on paper, efficiencies, and like some units are have this much efficiency and all that, they'll win on paper. And sometimes customers, when they do research, they're so focused on those SEER numbers and HSBF numbers. Essentially, when you get to like 19 SEER, 20 SEER, like what's the difference, right? So I sometimes try to talk customers down from that ledge to just not be so focused on that. There's what I call an X factor, right? And X factor is every contractor probably has their own, right? X factor is the experience level that we have with installing certain products. Historically, we as a company have installed certain products for a run, a generation, and then we find out, oh, this product fails early. It fails after 5 years, 6 years. We always have issues with it. It's problematic. We can't get parts. Well, any good contractor will stop selling that product and move on to a product that's more reliable. I mean, I think we're the number one people that want a reliable product because unreliable products give us headaches. Yeah, totally. And Mitsubishi is one of those products that just we install them, and obviously you have to do it right. We just don't have issues. We don't have major issues. I can't tell you with the thousands and thousands of units we installed. I am not sure when the last time we changed a Mitsubishi compressor. I think it was probably 2010, and I think it got hit by lightning. Like it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. That's nice. And I mean, some of that I definitely attribute to, install best practices, obviously, because if you install the stuff incorrectly, you'd be surprised. I mean, some of the stuff we run into, we see, you wonder how it ever ran, right? And the customer, when you recommend all these repairs or changes, they might be like, well, it's been running like this, for years. And you're kind of shocked. What are some of the installation best practices? Just take me through the list, like everything that you do start to finish, maybe even when you start bidding a job, to make sure a system's going to work right. And, what a customer should be looking for in order to do that.
Sure. It's very tough to say what a customer should be looking for. I mean, they should be looking for.
They should be looking for in their contractor, right? What the contractor should be doing.
Exactly. So let me kind of steer this a little bit differently. There's a lot of customers, and I deal with them all the time. They're focused on doing research on a product. They'll do research on Mitsubishi, on Trane, on Carrier, and they're focused on the product. A customer should honestly focus their research on the installation company, right? Look at their Google reviews, look at everything else you find about them, look at their presence, just the salesperson that comes into your house too. I mean, there's a lot of, psychological things that happen there too. You have a good feeling from them and all that kind of stuff. Generally speaking, if a company does something bad, somebody goes on the internet and they're the first ones to tell you they did something bad. So, if you look at Google reviews and things like that, it tells you a lot about how companies are installing things. But to answer your question on the technical side, it honestly has to start with training, right? Because you can talk about all these good things that need to happen, best practices, but the best practices have to be pervasive through your whole company. Everybody has to understand them. Everybody has to do them. Best practices are the little things, the details, right? So when installed, systems have to look good. Number one, it can't be sloppy. It has to look good. Level, right? Pitch air handlers correctly so you don't have water problems. You have to take care of water, condensate. That's important because otherwise you damage people's places. The way things are pitched, the way things are insulated in an attic so they don't sweat, right? It's the little details. But then, quite honestly, the most important day in the life of an air conditioning system is the day it's started up. Nothing else really matters because if somebody screws that up, it might be too late. You already may have done damage. There's a thing called, triple evacuation, right?
Yeah.
A lot of technicians, a lot of companies don't even do it, don't even know it. They skip it because, they can get away with it. Problems probably don't show up till many years later. But if you do the proper evacuation procedures, pressure check your system, of course, first, do the proper evacuation procedures, and do the proper charging procedures. It's kind of simple. I know, Howard, you probably know this, but it's focusing on those things. Then, like, the system will work. The system will be fine. Even if it's not the best brand out there or whatever it is, if you're doing those things perfectly, you're not leaving any contaminants inside the refrigeration system, you should be good. And those are the steps that are very easy to skip because sometimes they're time consuming, and I'm going to call them lazy installers can skip them because,
Sure.
because the system will work day one. They'll walk away from it and go, it's going great.
Totally. Yeah. And no, and that's all great stuff. I mean, those are the things that I try and, I like, when we bring it up to customers that these are things that we do in terms of making sure that things are, brazing with nitrogen or something, just basic stuff to make sure that you're getting, because you can actually look at copper from the inside when when they've shown pictures where you like cut open copper that's been brazed without it. And yeah, I've had the unpleasant experience of techs that just don't listen and don't do that. And I'm like, hey, we do this for a reason, and it's just because it makes, like, I don't want to deal with your callbacks, and you don't want to deal with your callbacks either, right? And so it's gonna do nothing but cause problems. What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when they're because you talked about if someone's in the market for an HVAC system replacement, most of the people that come to our channel, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at different products. We educate them about COP and efficiency and different things, customer experience. What's the biggest mistake people are making? And if there was one thing that you think people should do right, and maybe you already touched on it, with the researching of the installation company, but if there's one big mistake and one thing people should really focus on, what would those be?
Yeah, and I think the answer is probably different for different kind of customers, because I kind of, there's the researchers. I love the researchers, right? Those are the people who are proactive researchers, and there's the reactive people. It's broken, and whoever can come here tomorrow because I need air conditioning. I want it. Yes, I mean, focus on the company installing it, honestly, because like you said, you can take the best equipment in the world. If you have a bunch of idiots installing it, things aren't going to end up well, right? And that happens a lot. I think from the contractor's perspective, there's a lot of conversation always about price. And then you get compared to a contractor. Well, we found somebody here lower priced, right? There's no magic in what we do in the numbers. We all pay about the same for equipment. Somebody pays a little bit more, a little bit less, their percentage points. We all buy materials. We all pay our staff, right? How much you pay your staff is actually probably a reflection of how good they are, right? If you're getting the lowest cost technicians or untrained labor, you're not paying them. They're probably not that good. Those are the guys probably skipping the steps we just talked about, right? Yeah. So there's no magic of like, hey, I got a great deal. If you're comparing products, if you're buying a Toyota Highlander and dealer 1 and dealer 2 have a totally fast price, and you go, it's the same product, right? I can get it cheaper. Fine. With service companies, there's no true comparison like that. So you got to always understand that, yes, not everybody wants to pay the highest price, but that's why everybody tells you to get multiple bids, and you kind of pick, listen, we're sometimes the highest priced companies, and yes, people pick us for a reason, but the consensus is you want to pick somebody kind of in the middle or even high middle. You never want to pick the lowest price guy. Yeah. And I'm sorry, like sometimes if the contractors are the lowest price by coincidence, they're missing something or they're skipping something, right? There's something that's usually cut. It's either their skilled labor or some materials, or they're not quite doing what they're doing. And the telltale sign is usually in the proposals, because a lot of times when we get pinned up against contractors and companies, a customer will tell us that, hey, we got a proposal from company A, company B. I go, great, let's see those proposals. Within a minute, I can tell you, well, there's no mention of this, mention of that. And customers go, well, I'm assuming they're doing it. We talked about it. I'm like, okay, well, call them. A lot of times they'll call them and go, you know what, Chris, you were right. They're not doing the electric power. They just added it on. Now the price is jacked up and it's closer to yours. Yeah. So I think that's very important. Customers make so many, like the sweetness of the low price, and what's that saying with Benjamin Franklin had, the bitterness of low quality doesn't,
Yeah, I think my favorite quote on that is an attorney that I worked for when I was a kid. He said, "A bad job isn't a good deal at any price." So it's something along those lines.
Right. You're not rich enough to afford the cheapest price. Is the other one, right? And that's
right. Yeah, I like that. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, generally speaking, when we come into service places, this is generally the story we hear. We'll come somewhere where it's a year, 2, 3 after a new system was installed. They're experiencing problems. They're fed up with the contractor who either hasn't come back to deal with the warranty issues, or maybe has and he's just band-aiding things, and they're realizing, oops, I made a mistake, right? And then you backtrack like, okay, let's see. Yeah, I see what happened here. You hired the cheapest guy. He did the cheapest possible job, and there's problems. And it's sad because sometimes you got to tell them, like, hey, there's no solution for this. you got to rip it all out. Like everything about it is bad. I mean, I'd love to save something, but it's the wrong size. It's installed upside down, whatever it is, right? Like everything has to go. And it's not a great feeling to have that conversation with a customer, but honestly, sometimes that is the solution. And it's not that the customer is bad or anything. It's just, it's hard to spend the right amount of money, but it's a huge investment. It's a huge investment. And it's an investment that, in my area lasts 15 to 20 years. You're making a 15 to 20 year decision. Take your time.
For sure. And if someone's, on that note, like if someone's in the market for a system replacement and they're only going to be in the house for a few years, but they still want, a decent system or something, what do you recommend in those instances? Do you still push for an inverter or a daikin fit or something?
No. Listen, I don't push for anything. I present them with choices. I mean, that's essentially it. And that is a primary question you ask a homeowner. It's like, how long are you going to stay here? And when homeowners kind of try to get feedback off of you, I mean, that's where you kind of steer them and be like, well, honestly, if you're not going to, I mean, yes, you want a system you enjoy for the 5 years, it's good. But if you're looking to sell and you're not really into high efficiency, or you're not looking for some utility payback you're going to get over a span of 10 years, then perhaps that's not the system for you. You just go with the standard single stage system or whatever it is. I also warn people, because I have plenty of stories of customers that say, hey, I'm going to sell in 2 years here. And then 5 years later, I see the customer and be like, what happened? It's like, we decided to stay. So, just because you have those plans doesn't mean they always come to fruition. Sometimes you end up staying. So
Totally. Yeah, no, especially people didn't see interest rates coming. And now a lot of people are stuck and not moving because it doesn't make sense to move with, the interest rates as high as they are.
Yeah, you got to stay.
You got to. Yeah, I couldn't afford my house with a new 8 or 7% rate right now. That's for sure. So, or I wouldn't want to afford it. Let's put it that way. So there's a lot of talk now about new refrigerants coming out. Obviously, R454B, R32. What are your thoughts? And if you're talking to customers right now, because most of the new equipment is out, but some of it's still not. Like I know some of the inverter products are still on 410A. What would you say to a customer that's maybe on the fence or waiting? Or a customer that's worried about the new refrigerants, because some have heard that they're, flammable, even though, 410A is actually 50% R32 anyways. So it's not technically, that new or all that flammable. What would you say to, customers with those kind of questions or concerns?
So, yeah, there's plenty of customers that already know about this. We don't have to tell them. They kind of have done a little bit of research. With the flammability thing, you talk them down from their ledge a little bit. I think yes, it's classified as slightly flammable, but you have nothing to worry about. But, I have definitely, we've had a lot of customers that are pushing to just get their R410A systems now, mainly because, and I sort of agree to, it's kind of my talking point. It's like there's a new generation of equipment coming out. I don't know how well it's going to work. I mean, yes, the refrigerant is proven in other parts of the world, but every manufacturer's got a new lineup, new model numbers, new equipment. There's always stuff with new generation things. So, we're going to be the guinea pigs a little bit, the stuff. I hope not too much. So that's one aspect that maybe why somebody might want to get still the R410A stuff. It's proven, it's been around. The new stuff that's pushed out is, may have some potential issues and warranty issues to work out. But on the flip side, I do have customers that told me they're waiting for the new system, waiting because they just want to ensure that there's longevity to, the getting parts and refrigerant being available. I had a customer too that did some research and chose to have their system to be R32 daikin because of some health concerns with the R54B. If it ever leaked in the house, he did his own research, which, he kind of pointed me to it. I'm not going to argue with the customer. It's his own house that, R54B has some chemicals R32 doesn't, and it's potentially bad to breathe. So everyone's got their thoughts on it. The performance of all the equipment is supposed to be around the same.
Yeah.
I'm not terribly concerned about it.
And as far as, I wasn't aware of that with our 454B. So the customer was still concerned, even though you explained to them that it was like a sealed system, like it was just in case there was a leak or something in the future.
Yeah, it's a type of customer who's got all kinds of environmental concerns, right? It's the heat pump customer. They want to make sure they're environmentally friendly. That's the lesser global warming potential of the refrigerants as well. But the health concern. Yeah, there's those people that really pay attention to stuff, and they understand. And I think they understand that it's not supposed to leak out, but if it does, I don't want it in my house. So why would I bring it in my house, right?
Yeah.
Plus, they're not choosing poorly. I mean, were, one system they were presented was the Mitsubishi, one was the Daikin. Daikin happens to be R32. They're still getting a great system.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we sell daikin too, so we're a big fan of daikin, and R32 has been presented to us as a benefit because it's a single blend versus R454. But it's like, yeah, don't get me started on the environmental concerns rabbit hole, because I go down that personally when I'm just like buying basic stuff like shampoo or like deodorant. There's just so much crap in the stuff we buy nowadays. But at least refrigerant, I just try to tell people the good news is it is contained in a system, so it shouldn't leak out. You shouldn't have issues with it, and it's relatively easy to mitigate. As far as one of the biggest myths that we've ran into, and I mean we still run into it in this day, heat pump. I don't know how much you track the actual heat pump market, but I kind of have been watching the data. Heat pump sales are up something like, it's like 75% year over year, like past few years. So heat pump sales are really climbing, especially in cold regions. One of the biggest myths is that heat pumps do not work in cold climates like yours, for example. They say, oh, they don't work below 30 or 40 degrees or 45. What would you say to someone that's been told that, or contractors that say that?
No, it's absolutely wrong. So I mean, this is you hear it from the contractors that don't have experience with heat pumps. They're trying to talk you out of it because they themselves don't have the knowledge or the experience, and they're a little bit afraid. So if you're looking for that heat pump, that's not the first of all, that's not the contractor you want to hire, right?
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's absolutely wrong. I mean, yes, there's heat pumps that perform well into the negative. They'll work. How efficient they are is a different question, right? But some people don't care about that, right? And essentially, even in my, we're not the coldest climate. We're not Minnesota or anything like that. But we hit negative degrees every now and then. It happens. I'm in a house that has all heat pumps. In my area, it was like, I think December 2022 was like negative 10 degrees here, right? We had a cold snap here. I think around the whole country, we had that cold snap. Zero performance issues. They'll work. Yeah, they'll be maxed out. They'll work. The real thing is the design temperature, right? If we take an average place here in New Jersey that's got a 16-degree Fahrenheit design temperature, what that essentially means is 99% of the days will be 16 degrees or warmer. The other 1% of the days would be colder. So even if your heat pump was a little bit lacking on the colder temperatures, how often does it happen? So, okay, so you'll get a couple hours on the cold snap where maybe the house doesn't come up to your set point temperature. And then during the day, it warms up, sun comes out, and you're fine. As long as you understand that, as long as those are your expectations, then yeah, the heat pump works every time. I'm in a house with no backup. And a lot of my designs have no backup. Like, you don't need it. You just don't need it, especially when you do cold weather.
Yeah, and you don't have backup electric either, or backup furnace, just a straight heat pump.
Straight heat pump. Never had an issue. Yeah, and I have multiple units and all that. So if one goes down, there's others that kind of cover. Now, listen, a backup electric strip is nice to have, but sometimes your panel is maxed out, and like there's no. If you wanted to do it, now we have to get a sub panel or upgrade the panel and things like that. So, people there's contractors will say, oh my God, you have this heat pump, but you have no backup for it. Like, be careful. I say, I'll show you hundreds of customers I have that for years where it's never an issue.
And what about when the system is going through defrost cycle? You still don't have issues where the temp's dropping too much? Is that where you really check the insulation to make sure that it's insulated well enough to at least stay comfortable?
Yeah. So the type of equipment you pick is also important, right? And I always tell people that you look at submittal sheets, you look at the big things on there, which is, the COPs and the efficiencies and things of that sort. And that's what people try to focus on. What's not listed there is like, how well does a unit defrost? Because different units have different defrosting technologies, right? Mitsubishi units are super fast defrosting. Like, yes,
how long is a defrost cycle?
It depends. It's not, like a very simple heat pump. Obviously, would be like kind of like timed out, and we'll go through some whatever 20-minute thing or whatever it is. So they kind of have a simple way of doing it. Once it starts freezing up. But a lot of these smarter Japanese systems, the Daikins, the Mitsubishis, they'll have an algorithm for there'll be just sporadic cycles of defrosting, but it'll be quick. It's literally like 3 minutes sometimes, right? It depends on the condition, obviously, right? But yeah, 3 minutes of not heating your house, unless your house is Swiss cheese, generally doesn't really affect it. Now, if you're pushing your heat pump that it's like at its capacity, yeah, you're going to feel some sort of a difference. But that's the reason we choose the systems we choose for the heat pump applications. That X factor again, right? I talked about the X factor being reliability, But I love the side discharge heat pumps better than the American style trash can heat pumps. I observed all the, and Carrier makes a fantastic one, Carrier Infinity and Bosch and all that. I've observed the defrost cycles on those. Those take way longer to defrost. I don't have any data. I mean, it's personal observation we've had, but they seem to gather ice around coils a lot differently than the horizontal discharge units. And I don't know if you paid attention to it, but now that I said it, you might start paying attention.
I might, yeah. I mean, I know. So I have a side discharge or two side dischargers at my house. We have, I have a daikin Atmosphera, just 1-to-1 in our garage. I mean, it keeps the garage toasty so far. We've had a few cold snaps down into the teens, and that's the only source of heat. It's a detached garage, and then we have a VRV unit, the VRV Life, and that's side discharge as well. And it doesn't, we're kind of spoiled in that we have a boiler as well as that, and so that kind of. We're running both, but we run the VRV Life mainly for humidity. So we have forced air because we didn't have forced air before that. And so that way we run the steam humidifier that way. But I haven't noticed that it really goes into, even on the coldest nights, we've gotten down to like -15 or, and it'll be running and I don't even notice the defrost cycle as much. And that it might be because, like I said, there's some supplementation, but seems to do pretty well. So
yeah, I'm amazed. I've observed mine totally being covered in ice and snow, and it looks like it's just like it's being eaten alive by the snow, and it's still working and operating and heating. I'm like, wow, like it just looks like a snowball outside. And yeah, they'll go through its defrost cycle at some point, but yeah, it's not noticeable. It's never been a problem.
That's awesome. What are some of the primary considerations if someone's watching this right now and they're just trying to decide between a furnace and a heat pump or just keeping what they have currently? What are the things that you would point to say, you know what, like if you have XYZ, maybe stick, a furnace is going to meet your needs and you're going to be happy with that. Or if you're, wanting these added benefits, I would maybe recommend a heat pump. What would be those things when you're having that conversation with the customer?
Sure. So if you're a customer that's got an existing furnace, an existing air conditioner, yep, and you're just looking for, hey, how can I just improve the efficiencies, spend a little bit less in heating? Maybe I'm looking for a little bit more comfort too, because a heat pump is definitely going to be more comfortable in the majority of situations compared to a furnace. Then a hybrid solution is usually an easy one. You're never really worried about the size of the heat pump and it will keep up or not because you have that furnace. So you can easily replace your existing AC, assuming it's sized right correctly too, right? And make it into a heat pump and have that furnace. That's an easy thing, right? If you're the type of person who, and I have these customers, that's why I mention it, that wants to remove carbon burning things from your house, then, I think the primary consideration is, okay, how big is your house? Your house might need more than that one heat pump that used to be an air conditioner. Like that size works fine for an air conditioner, but now you got a bigger house. And of course, how tight, how well insulated is your house? Because if you're looking to switch to heat pump and you're in perhaps a little bit of a colder climate, you can expect to pay a little bit more in electricity versus paying in gas for a high efficiency furnace. Now, when I have plenty of customers that go from oil, then when they go from oil to heat pump, like that's a win every time. The oil definitely costs a lot more. But if you compare it to gas, what we pay for gas here at high efficiency, then definitely it's the gas furnace will probably cost you less to run than a full 100% heat pump. So yes, it's wonderful that you want to do a full electrification for your reasons, but then you don't want to be paying for it too much. So the house envelope is super important.
Sure. And for someone who's really concerned about their carbon footprint, what would you say? Because we love, dual fuel heat pumps because they work well for our climate for that kind of reason. And also too for installation considerations, because it's like, hey, in a perfect world with an unlimited, budget, obviously we could put in all sorts of cool stuff that exists out there. But we also, want to be cognizant and realize for most people that might not be a reality. What's the best bang for your buck with your existing system, with that existing infrastructure? Where are you, just curious, where are you running into oil? Because here we have more propane. We don't have oil as much, but where are you guys running into oil? Is it up?
North, I mean, it's a disappearing thing, right? Sure. There's no doubt about it. That's why we as a company don't actually we decided not to deal with oil. We'll replace oil systems, but there's anybody that's upgrading generally goes away from oil. Nobody likes oil, right? So But yeah, the northern parts, northwestern parts of New Jersey, the more rural parts still definitely have oil, and that's changing day by day. The gas companies, a huge project in New Jersey that's pretty much bringing a lot of just gas lines to all those previously oil territories. So it's an ever shrinking portion of the utility here.
And it's similar to propane in that you have like an oil tank, correct? It's like off grid. It's not a
Yeah,
on grid.
you're off grid. You're off grid. Yeah, we only have propane too. Not as popular with the propane, but if I had a choice between oil and propane, I'm taking propane. I know some people say it's more expensive or whatever it is, but at least with propane you can really get high efficiency equipment.
Yeah.
You can get high efficiency furnaces with oil. You really can't.
And it burns just as clean, I think, as natural gas. I think it's a little bit of a dirtier burn, but it's in general, it's a pretty clean burning appliance, and won't destroy your equipment. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on this show. If someone's in New Jersey, where can they find you?
Sure. So website icshvac.com is our website. It has all our contact information. We work pretty much all of northern New Jersey, so anybody from around here knows what northern New Jersey is. There's a clear line. We also do New York City work, and reach out to us. We do all kinds of commercial and residential products.
So hopefully you found this content helpful. And as mentioned earlier, in the description, there's going to be a link for how you can connect with Chris. If you happen to be in the New Jersey area and are looking for a reliable contractor, definitely give him a call. If you happen to be outside of New Jersey in any other metro, we actually created a referral program through the HVACdopeshow.com. So if you're interested in being connected with a contractor in your area, click the link in the description for more information on how to be connected with a hand-selected contractor that specifically works on the types of systems you're looking for in your particular metro. And right now there's a video popping up on the screen that YouTube thinks you should watch. So make sure you check that out if you haven't done so already, and we will catch you on the next episode.